The debate erupted when Zia Yusuf launched a fierce attack on the government of Keir Starmer, accusing it of weak leadership during the escalating Middle East crisis. Yusuf claimed Britain had become militarily unprepared and unable to project power, arguing that the UK even struggled to deploy naval assets quickly. Barry Gardiner fired back, insisting the government had acted responsibly by refusing to rush into what he called an illegal and poorly planned war triggered by Donald Trump. The exchange quickly turned fiery, with both men accusing each other of misleading the public and ignoring Britain's real strategic interests. But the real question remains, who is really running Britain, and are we on the edge of a war with no exit plan?
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Next UK, your go-to for real stories and sharp analysis.
Had a situation where the Royal Navy was unable to project power, unable to put a destroyer into theatre for several weeks. So we're in a situation where, yes, when Trump says that Britain has massively underinvested in defence for decades. That is absolutely true. Our military is hollowed out. We have a Prime Minister that is a joke. And as I said, is a Prime Minister really in name only? Ed Miliband is basically running the country with the cabal of left-wing MPs around him. And we're now in a situation, as I said, where, unfortunately, no one really knows where Britain stands on any of these issues. We do want the war to come to an end as quickly as possible. Obviously, oil prices spiking. That's going to filter through to energy costs for British people. And by the way, we should not forget, almost 40%, for example, of the price that viewers of this programme are going to pay for their petrol at the fuel pumps is a direct result of government policy. And the mad net zero policy started by the Tories, continued by Labour, are going to only exacerbate these issues. So we want this war to come to an end as quickly as possible, but we've also got to reduce fuel duty, make it as easy as possible for people suffering in this country under a cost of living crisis.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, there's been a lot of talk as well over the weekend about some of these costs of a litre of petrol. We'll drill into that in just a second. I'll put it on the screen. It'll blow your mind. Ladies and gents, Barry Gardiner, where are you on it?
A week ago, President Trump was saying that he didn't need the UK and he didn't want the UK to be involved. And then he was saying now, oh, well, actually, maybe we want you to help us open up the Straits of Hormuz. The reality is that this is an illegal war. The reality is that there is no exit plan and there are no clear goals as to what the war is about. President Trump has said that it's about regime change. He said it's about oil. He has no clear strategy in going in here. And when he says, well, it would have been nice to have had Britain on board before, well, maybe he should have actually spoken to some of his allies before going in, instead of simply rushing in after Israel had said it was going to. So actually, he says he's not happy with the UK. If you look at the polls, the UK is not happy with this war because it is increasing prices of fuel. It is causing real damage to our economy, and there's no getting away from it. This is a war that President Trump has started. We're all paying the price for it one way or the other, and that's why I think Britain looks at it and they say, look, even Americans now are against this war. They think that he's made a big mistake. This was the president who said before he came into office, he was going to be the peace president. He said he was no more foreign wars, is what he said. He said Afghanistan was a mistake. He said all of that. And now look what he's done. He's created the biggest surge in the price of living, the cost of living that we've seen for years.
I am not someone that wants to go charging headfirst into war and all the rest of it, but Iran, even when Keir Starmer gave his speech this morning and he was basically saying, this is an abhorrent regime and all the rest of it. This is a nation who is constantly chanting death to America. They spend their times sponsoring potential terror attacks in this country. It is Iran, when you say that he's pushing the price of the oil up and all the rest of it, it is Iran who have decided, not for the first time, to leverage the Strait of Hormuz to create economic warfare. They've done it before, they're doing it now, they probably likely will do it again. So what does everyone do then?
They retaliate an attack by the United States. That's the reality of the situation. I think Trump has shown absolutely folly in doing this. We know that if you listen to what the Qataris were saying, who were brokering the negotiations before the war started, they said the negotiations were going well, and yet suddenly the war erupted. So, I think Donald Trump has called it wrong. The British public think that. The American public think that. And, as for Keir Starmer, you both know that I'm not somebody who has, blindly just nodded my head to everything that Keir Starmer has said or done. I've had my criticisms of the things that he's done, and I've been public about those. But I think on this, he's called it absolutely right. And I think I said to you before, Michelle, that, I was there when we went into Iraq. I needed no persuading that Saddam Hussein was a bad, evil man and that the regime murdered its own people, just like the Iranians. But what I did need to know was that it was a legal war, that we weren't putting our soldiers, our military personnel in harm's way for something that was illegal in international law and had no clear exit strategy. And that's what Trump has done. And I'm really glad for once that Starmer called it right and didn't just rush in after the Americans.
When you say called it right, so do you think he should have allowed the Americans to use British RAF bases?
I think it was right for him to say that they could be used for defensive strikes against missile silos to stop them launching further attacks, but not to use those bases for launching first strikes.
Well, his initial position was that they couldn't be used at all, if you remember. And if you read very well sourced, Tim Shipman, a guy who's pretty well connected in this space, he originally wanted. So you're making the case for Keir Starmer's judgment, which is why I'm asking you your personal view on this. Starmer's original position, according to that reporting, was to allow the Americans to use those bases, and very well sourced articles suggest that he was basically overruled by Ed Miliband and other. I think it was Rachel Reeves who came in behind Ed Miliband. So what I'm asking you is, which decision was correct? The one that Keir Starmer originally took, or the one that Ed Miliband took after that cabinet meeting?
Two things. One, you're going on a report by somebody who wasn't there,
which has not been formally denied by the government,
and certainly has not been agreed. But my point to you would be this: the importance of cabinet government is very clear. The Prime Minister is the first amongst equals, but he is the first amongst equals. And the importance of having a cabinet government is that you reach a collective decision.
Barry, with respect, you're not going to educate everyone. Everyone watching this program knows what a cabinet does, a collective responsibility. I'm asking you, which decision was correct? The one that cabinet eventually decided upon, which is to not allow the Americans to use it. OK, so you think that was a decision that was correct? Not the decision that Keir Starmer originally wanted to make?
You say that. I have no knowledge.
I'm not saying that. Very well-sourced articles say that. And the government failed, and the government did not deny it.
See, be honest about it. It's a Conservative commentator who's...
OK, so you don't think that happened? No, genuinely, you don't think that happened?
Look, I've no knowledge whether it happened or not. Okay. What I do know is the position that the Prime Minister arrived at, and the one that he came to announce in the House of Commons, was the one that I agree with. And I think most of the British public do as well.
Which is that the RF bases should not have been used at all, because that position changed. And this is the problem, Barry. The seriousness with which Britain is taken...
That's not what I said, Zia.
OK, so clarify your position.
I don't need to. My position is very clear. You're just trying to obfuscate it. What I've said is that allowing the bases, our British bases, to be used for defensive purposes, to defend our citizens who live in the Middle East and to defend our allies in the Middle East from direct attacks on them,